You ready? Okay, I'll call the meeting to order. All three commissioners are present. It was properly posted on December 29th. Then our prayer and pledge led by District 1.
Good morning and Happy New Year. This morning we have a special guest to lead our opening prayer, Mr. Mike Kornblit, who is a friend of mine. Michael Kornblit is a co-founder of the Respect Diversity Foundation, a nonprofit educational organization founded to teach understanding, respect, and acceptance for all people. Through RDF's Speakers Bureau and numerous programs, educators work with students, teachers, and community organizations throughout the state. Since its founding 24 years ago, RDF has worked with over 395,000 students, teachers, and adults. Mike is the co-author of the best-selling book, Until We Meet Again, which is the true story of his parents who were Holocaust survivors. The book is a love story. Mike is a graduate of the University of Oklahoma with a bachelor's degree in education. He worked for 19 years for the Close Up Foundation in Washington, D.C., an educational and organization teaching students and teachers about our government and political processes and current issues. He directed Close Up's television and video department, where he produced the ACE Award-winning television series, which aired on the cable satellite Public Affairs Network. He produced numerous award-winning documentaries, including Democracy and Rights, about the 1957 desegregation of Little Rock High School. Mr. Kornblit, would you like to come up and lead our opening prayer? Would you all please stand with me?
Thank you very much for having me here today. When I was 6 years old, it was the first time sitting in the living room with my parents in Ponca City that I saw a K and an L tattooed on my parents' wrists. And on the inside of my mother's forearm was the letter A followed by the number 27327. I asked them what those were, and they explained to me in the least horrifying and the simplest of terms that they were both survivors of the Holocaust. That was my first experience with anti-Semitism. Unfortunately, it would not be my last. As you are all probably aware, in 2022, we saw the largest number of incidents of anti-Semitism documented by the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, since they started keeping records. We were headed to break that record even before the Israeli-Hamas war broke out in October. As the son of Holocaust survivors, and in my speaking engagements, I relate the Holocaust to issues of today. One of the numbers that I refer to is 1.5 million. That's the number of Jewish children who were murdered in the Holocaust, who never had the opportunity to contribute to their families, to their communities, to their countries, or to the world at large. In the conflict in Syria, which is still going on, over 55,000 children have been murdered. Those children didn't have the opportunity to contribute to their families, their country, or their communities. In the most recent conflict between Israel and Hamas, thousands of children have been killed on both sides. In this country, including here in Oklahoma, children have been killed each day due to gun violence. Just imagine if all those children had lived, what a better world we might have. In addition to those who have perished while we're in this chamber today, 12.5 million children, including 188,000 here in central Oklahoma, will go to bed hungry tonight. To me, there is nothing more valuable than the children, to make sure they have the opportunity to live a peaceful and productive life. It is the responsibility of each of us to do all we can to make sure that that happens. I'm sure each of you feel the same as I do. The future we envision is one of coexistence, harmony, and prosperity for all. There is no room for hate. In Judaism, we have a concept from the Talmud that is passed down to every Jewish child. It is called Tikkun Olam, which says we have a responsibility to repair our broken world. While it is not our duty to finish the work, neither are you liberty to neglect it. I would like to share this prayer from our Temple B'nai Israel prayer book. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. God, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise waiting to do your will. May we all gain wisdom in our lives, overflowing like a river with understanding. Loved each of us for the peace we bring to others. May our deeds exceed our speech, and may we never lift up our hand, but to conquer fear, doubt, and despair. Rise up like the sun, O God, over all humanity. Cause light to go forth over the lands between the seas, and light up the universe with the joy of wholeness, of freedom, and of peace. Amen. And at this time, I would like to lead everybody in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kornblit.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the minutes of December 27th?
I'll move our minutes.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Is there a motion to approve the claims?
I'll move our claims.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any change to the blanket? There's no change.
I'll move our blanket.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Now a recommendation from our purchasing agent.
Good morning, Commissioners. This item is for P24120-04. This is for construction manager at risk for the new Oklahoma County Adult Detention Center campus. We received 2 proposals, one from Flint Co. and J.E. Dunn. There was an evaluation committee consisting of members from engineering, members of the Citizens Bond Oversight Advisory Board, and also the architect of record, HOK. On November 8th, we did a first round of interviews, and again on the 14th, we did a second round of interviews. And based on feedback, scoring from the evaluation committee with a weighted score, I am recommending award to the best proposal from Flint Co.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion to accept the purchasing agent's recommendation and choosing Flintco.
And I do want to thank the members of that group who spent many hours interviewing both of these firms and sending them questions and really making sure that we made a good decision. So,
Yes, absolutely. It was very thorough.
yeah. I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Next one.
This next item is for CW 24031-2, lawn maintenance supplies and services. We received 3 bids from Madison Turf Farm, Eckroat Seed, and Site One Landscape Supply. These are items like sod, seeding, different seed materials, staples, market blue paint for the ground. Based upon final evaluation, each firm presented a low bid on one of the different items, so I'm recommending award lowest per line item. Sod to Madison Turf Farms, seeding material to Site One, and the market blue paint to Eckroat Seed.
I'll move approval of Ms. Boso's recommendation.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any individual consideration on the consent docket?
I'll move our consent docket.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The next item is the annual election of chair and vice chair. Are there any nominations?
Would you like to continue serving?
I can. It's the board's pleasure.
Okay. I'll move that we keep Commissioner Mon as our chair, and I believe I currently serve as vice chair. I'll move that we keep our slate the same as previous years.
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you for your vote of confidence. District 3.
Yep, this is my annual verbal report about visiting the jail. After working for Commissioner Mon and then being here for 364 days as commissioner now, I can tell you that the jail has moved in a very positive manner. It's much, much better than it once was. We've still got a long ways to go. We still need to make some investments into this facility because it's still going to take several years before we can move into a new facility. And we have yet to choose a location for that new facility. But my tour consisted of all 13 floors. We went in, saw the new pods, and that's all I've got to say about it. So with that, I'll make a motion that we enter that into the record.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
County clerk, this is just standard, isn't it? Okay. This is approval of our federal tax exempt status letter.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Engineering,
Yeah, you had a public hearing a few months ago on Henny Road and determined that you wanted to rebuild that road. So this is a contract with us and Smith Roberts Ball Schweiler to do the survey for that mile of road to get that project started.
I'll make the motion to approve this 18,000.
Second?
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
This, Hannah, you're willing to take a stab at this?
I thought you were supposed to be on vacation.
Tomorrow.
Oh,
I
okay.
leave tomorrow.
sick.
Keith is out sick this morning, so I'm a subpar replacement for this item. But Grant and his staff were able to come out and look at this space last week of the most north area of the JJC. It's on your attachment on the 4th floor. They're confident that they can make that space work, and everyone seems to be happy. So we're excited to get moves started here in the next couple weeks.
Grant, you have anything you wanted to add?
Good morning. Yes, exactly what Hannah said. And thanks to Infrastructure Committee for giving us an opportunity to put some eyes on the location. And we did take a look, and we feel very confident that this space will be perfectly utilized by us and be able to move forward.
I want to thank you both. I know it's not pleasant, and I appreciate your spirit of cooperation, and Keith also, who's under the weather, for all of his willingness to continue to look at revisions. So thank you very much.
Grant, can you tell us how many staff?
That'll put 10 out there.
Okay, any other further discussion?
I'll move approval.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, Eric?
Good morning. On the December 21st Planning Commission agenda was an item to discuss our current fee structure in regards to a lot of the activities that we do. The resolution that's in front of you, I've broken it down into 4 different sections, and I'll go over each section just to kind of make everything easier and if you have any questions or concerns. The first section on page 1 is our filing fees. This is in regards to plats, rezoning, PUD, special use permits. The only fee that changed under that section is under the PUD. The $425 remained the same, but we changed it from $2 an acre to $12 an acre. We think the $2 an acre was an error previously, so as more to correct that issue. And also PUDs take more time to review than any other applications that we have. So that was the only change there in regards to that first section. I don't know if you have any questions or concerns. I'll move on to the second section. The second section is basically our inspection fees in regards to all the activities that we do, if it's residential, commercial. So that's the bottom of page 1, all of page 2, and the first half of page 3. Essentially, all of those fees were raised $5 per inspection. So that's reflected in the resolution that you have before you. Do you have any questions about inspection fees? The bottom portion has to do with medical marijuana and the certificates of compliance that we do. There was quite a bit of discussion there at the Planning Commission about those fees. Staff initially set those fees for grow facilities at $1,000 for the inspections, dispensary $1,500 for inspections, processing and research facilities were $2,000 for those inspections. And if anything failed, there was a reinspection fee of $55 for us to go back out there to ensure that the correction was done properly. Planning Commission, after discussion, decided to make all of those fees $2,000 for each type. And then if there's a reinspection, there was was going to be a cost of $150 instead of $55. That's what they wanted to move forward with that. And that was what's in the resolution before you. If you have any questions, the main question that we had and the main discussion was, what have other jurisdictions charged throughout the state? Just to kind of go over some of those real quick. City of Edmond, City of Oklahoma City are the same. They charge dispensaries $615, growing, processing, research for $750 for those inspections. City of Norman, $600 for dispensaries. Growing, processing, and testing is $900. Broken Arrow is $1,000 for all three across the board. And if it's renewal, it's $750 across the board. City of Enid was $150 for all three. City of Shawnee was $1,500 for all three. And Pottawatomie County was $2,000 for all three. So that's all I had, unless you had any particular questions or concerns on that section. The last section was our administrative fire review inspections that we do. Since the county is now the state fire marshal, we do all those inspections. We didn't have any fee structure set up for us to do the administrative part. All these inspections are through a third-party vendor. We have 3 different vendors that we work with, and we collect none of those fees. So we've added a $55 fee just to coordinate with those third-party inspectors. We have to also enter that into the system to make sure that it's tracked properly. So that's the last fee there. The last discussion that we had was our square footage fee that we charge for any type of construction. If it's residential, if it's commercial, whatever the case may be, we have 25 cents a square foot that we charge for all of our applications that we take in. One of the items that's on this particular resolution is rescinding Resolution 17696, which talks about charging public schools a square footage fee for construction or addition to current facilities that they have. This is something that has been in place for quite some time because we didn't do those inspections. The state fire marshal would do all those inspections. They would do all the plan reviews. And now that we've taken that duty over, obviously that's a big change for us. So after much discussion with the planning commission felt that the school district should be charged the same per square foot as any other residence, any other commercial property owner, any other activity. There was some discussion that maybe the fee should be set up less. We provided an example in the meeting itself. Deer Creek School is looking to build a new facility. We went over those fee structures with this particular school that they're wanting to build. And throughout that discussion, they felt as though everything should remain the same. So just to kind of give you an idea, on this particular facility they're looking to build, it's a 120,000 square foot facility. We, the county, through our third-party reviewer, would charge for review of the plans themselves and actually going out on site. Third-party review would be in the neighborhood of $45,000 to $50,000 total for that entire project, where we, under the current situation, would not have any administrative fees from that. With the change with the resolution before you, if we do charge 25 cents a square foot, we are approximately charging $30,000 for our fees just to make sure that this project is done correctly. We make sure that we coordinate with the third-party vendors to go out there to do the inspections. We make sure that the money gets to where it needs to be as far as in our budget, but also with the third-party vendor, they get the fees once they've done the inspections. And so that's what the Planning Commission wanted to move forward with. All of them voted for the resolution that you had before you. Besides one, there was one no vote. So that's all that I had, unless you had any particular questions about this resolution.
Did the one no vote have a particular reason? Because I know there's a whole lot here that you're packaging up.
No, they did not have a particular reason that they gave in the meeting. No.
Was the last time we updated these fees 2019?
A lot of the fees, yes, was 2019. There was some that was also in 2021. So there's a couple resolutions that we are removing, and this would be taking over those.
And if we approve this today, I assume the new fees will be posted on our website.
Yes, we'll have to go through the motion to get everything updated on the website, but
Okay.
yes.
Will there be any other way that we communicate with the public on the changes?
No, I mean, typically in the past, what we've done with our inspection fees, as an example, we would send out a letter. We can do that still, but a lot of times, I don't think people read those letters, to be honest with you. So when they call us, we let them know what those changes are. So typically, our website and phone calls are the most successful as far as disseminating this information.
You were on the planning. You have anything you want to say?
Yeah, the most discussion that we had was actually about the marijuana fees. The other one was the school. I kept expecting to hear something from the superintendent from Deer Creek, Mr. Perez, and never heard anything. And then when I discussed with Eric what the state was charging, it was the same. So it sounds crazy, and it sounds crazy to me. I mean, $81,000 for a permit and an inspection, everything sounds insane, but I guess that's the norm. That doesn't mean that we can't lower it and make it easier for the schools, but the sentiment was that with the bonds, the way that they are, they expected all the fees and everything to be this way. They plan for those things as they're putting that stuff out. So that's the way I took it. I mean, if I'm wrong with that.
No, that is correct. We did have a discussion. I contacted Deer Creek Superintendent Jason Perez. We had multiple conversations before this even went to the Planning Commission to see if he had any concerns, if he wanted anything changed. I encouraged him to contact Commissioner Davidson to have those discussions if he thought that what was being charged overall was too much. So apparently he never contacted him. So, I mean, when you're dealing with a multi-million-dollar project, maybe at the end of the day, $80,000 for a permit is not unusual. This is first for us, so I can't say that it's usual or unusual. Every jurisdiction treats schools differently. We contacted City of Edmond, City of Oklahoma City. Obviously, they're structured different than we are, but some of them didn't charge a per square foot fee, but they did charge for the inspections. So everybody is a little bit different on how they handle this.
Is there anything pending, like where this needs to be implemented this week as opposed to next week? Does it affect? I know it's the beginning of the year.
No, there's no rush. The big thing that we discussed was, again, the marijuana stuff. And I mean, there was even discussion about making it even higher to keep it out of an unincorporated area for the permits and everything. But that was really, I mean, we have a member that was also present that's here if he'd like to speak about it. But
You have anything you want to say, sir?
No, basically Eric and Miles covered what we discussed.
Well, what's your pleasure? You want to make a motion on this now, or you want to?
I'm comfortable approving this today, but if you want to make sure you talk to Mr. Perez, we can wait a week.
no, I've reached out to him. Eric told him to call, and he doesn't have a problem with it. So
Okay.
I'm fine with passing it today.
Okay. Then I will move approval of the recommended changes from the Planning Commission to our fee structure.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we have a number of citizens who've come today to sign up and speak, and I might just kick us off by saying if you haven't filled out a form, that's how we know who to call on, and the clerk has one, and there's some, I think, in the very back. If you want to present it to the clerk if you haven't. And also, there's been some confusion about why there aren't other sites listed and why there are some sites listed. So if I can just take a stab at that real quick, might save some of our time. We had been given a list of sites from Oklahoma City as a prospective possible locations, and After identifying that we didn't really feel like they'd gotten any assurance from the property owner if they're interested or not, our engineering staff has been working due diligence through the holidays, which wasn't an easy time to reach everybody. So there may or may not be additional sites come from that. I think certified letters just went out recently, as they found who the owners of these properties were. Some of them were LLCs. We were attempting to try to get to an actual person who was a influencer and a decision maker. That's one. Two, citizens can voluntarily offer their land. And I know a number of you I can see here are here to talk about Mr. Goodman's land. And it had been discussed and had been rejected and passed over in the original time. He has brought it back with a reduced lower price, and it just has to be officially accepted or rejected. It's just not up to someone who receives this in the mailroom to wad it up and throw it away. So these things that come maybe seemingly out of nowhere, or things that you feel like have already been dealt with, there's a reason why those things have re-entered into the conversation here. So with that, do either of you have anything you want to say to head off the deal? So you'll each be given 3 minutes. Don't feel like you have to take the whole 3 minutes if you've got your point already made, but because of the number of participants asking to speak this morning, we'll really try to stick to 3 minutes, if that would be okay. Dustin Cashley.
Yeah, good morning. My name is Dustin Lashley.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. And I'm a resident of Eastern Oklahoma County, unincorporated Oklahoma County. I'm here today because I'm adamantly opposing the proposed jail location at 29th and Kickapoo. The Choctaw and Nahara residents have a hard time as it is getting the resources for infrastructure, support, emergency services, even more so for us that are in the unincorporated county, which is right where this location's potentially going to go, right? The taxpayers' dollars that would be tied up paying for the transportation loan for processing inmates into that jail, back and forth to court proceedings, require public transit upon release, would be significant and wasteful. Not to mention the time the officers would spend in transit would be taking away from the communities that they were hired to protect and police. Furthermore, the local community is not setting up to assist the folks released from the jail or mental health facilities that relates to transportation services or alike. My community does not want this jail as its neighbor. Per the OSBI's site 2023, the top crimes against property and damages were damages, destruction, vandalism, larceny, breaking and entering. These are all crimes that we're not looking to have an influx in our community from the release of the prisoners if they're stuck in the area, whatever. Also, I apologize here, my throat. The the influx of narcotics, right? The Oklahoma County Jail. There's narcotics flowing through that. As recently as 1 December of 2023, there was overdoses in the jail. They're not sure where those narcotics came from, and we're not looking to have that influx in our community. Again, just want to reiterate the limited manning without raising taxes for those in our community if that's an area that was going to be considered. And this is a burden that we're just not prepared to accept. I myself am a civil servant, an acquisition officer, and I understand the importance of following regulations, the appearance of any of my decisions that may be improper or have conflict of interest. And I know that Mr. Goodman's property has been put up by himself, as you've mentioned, but he's also been nominated and has served previously on the Board of Adjustments, right, which is important because he was in charge of appeals for granting variances to county zoning regs, applications for special acceptances, appeals where it's appearance of error of the law. He's been recently nominated by you, Mr. Mon, to take over the remaining term for Charlie Phillips himself. I just feel like that in and of itself is a conflict of interest, and whether there's impropriety there or not, I just don't think that it's a good look in general, and it's something that I'd like to have on the record. And I would definitely just want to make it very known that I am not, I'm not for the county jail going here in the Eastern Oklahoma County 29th and Kickapoo Turnpike. and respectfully request that you guys remove that from the list. Thank you.
I might say too, if any of you have a suggestion as to where it should go, since I know most are here to speak against it. Terry Hawes.
Good morning. Thank you for allowing me some time to speak. My property lies right next to the proposed prison or jail site in Luther. I'm at 17401. It's at 17501 Northeast 150th Street. Like most of the folks in the area, I moved to Luther for peace and quiet, security, and obviously a 2,200 cell detainee center and all that goes with it would devastate that. But not just for me, for many hundreds, if not thousands of people like me that have moved into the area. If you would allow me, I'd like to tell you some things about the proposed site you might not know. Number one, it's bordered by a railroad track. I walk for exercise most days, and I've walked down that track many, many times for exercise and for fun. It's an easy 2-mile walk to Luther High School. Middle school and elementary school in Luther proper, not much further. Of course, it's unpatrolled, and nor could it be patrolled unless by foot. If I were an escapee or a released detainee with no transportation, it's the route I would take to the nearest town. Secondly, the width of my property, 330 feet, separates this site from a marijuana distribution facility. Like many that have popped up in rural Oklahoma, it's underregulated. It's fenced only on one side, not the other three. It's unguarded, highly visible from the road. They bring in bales of pot and stack it with the barn door wide open by the road. They bring it in by the truckload, send it out by the carload. It seems to me to be a liability to the county. Should something happen and someone get injured, I would have to protect my property if a detainee were to try to cross through to get to the backside of this place. Somebody could get hurt, and I don't want that to happen. Thirdly, the property is basically a hillside with a 60-foot drop with a railroad that bounds it on the bottom and a floodplain below that. It's an undesirable building site for anything. And that's why it hasn't sold. It's been for sale and it hasn't sold. It seems to me just to be a bad location all the way around. I know lots of folks have discussed the massive infrastructure cost that would be associated with moving this facility so far from downtown Oklahoma City, but it's also unfair to the detainees who would be released or housed there 25 miles from family or transportation or food once they get out. Not only is it a risk to the community, it's not fair to the detainees. I would like to offer a solution. I believe the only solution for this problem is to build a big, new, beautiful jail right by the old one and tear that old one to the ground. Get it out of the news, get it out of our sight. Thank you so much for listening to me. God bless you.
Abigail Smith.
Good morning. Sorry, I'm a little shorter. My name is Abigail Smith, and I live in Luther, Oklahoma. My family is fairly new to the area. We had COVID lockdown claustrophobia in our tiny backyard in the city, so in 2020, we moved out to Luther. Like a lot of young families, we moved in, we renovated a really bad house, and we are helping to make Luther a thriving community, one that we actually now really treasure. We didn't know what we'd moved into, and we love it. So although we never intended to make this our forever home, that's actually becoming more and more of a thought. But with the recent information that a jail with 1,000 more beds than the total population of our little town, we, like many other young families, might be searching for another small town. We need only to look back to the trend of the 80s and 90s to see that small towns were bidding on jail locations as they were advertised as boosts for the local economy, job opportunities for those not finding work, population booms, and positive initiatives for small towns, but they were all pretty much flop. Carrie Blankinger, a formerly incarcerated person, took a distinct interest in looking into what prisons have done to small Midwestern towns and reported to NBC News and found the following, that prisons didn't buy things locally, so it didn't really help the economy. Jobs were not particularly desired, and there was little to no training, so people came from outside that town for jobs. Those who did take them, because of lack of other positions, were easily corrupted, and inevitably this spilled out into the town with more and more corruption found there as well. And these counties, rather poor ones, were reportedly forced to pay for autopsies, juries for investigations of people committing crimes behind bars, and other unforeseen costs in these types of facilities. So even though it was reported that there would be no additional cost to the community or town where they were located, it was not realized that the full amount that would be required financially and morally would decrease significantly the population over a period of 10 years. And that's something that I'd really hate to see for Luther. And according to the Bureau report with the Institute for Justice from 2017 forward, the desire is to reverse the trend of needing bigger and more jails and prisons, but findings are showing that rural jails are actually a huge drain on the system. They present special challenges, the length of drive times for visiting families that affect mental health, length of drive time to and from for lawyers or judges or those who are responsible for the inmates, as well as longer incarceration periods for those waiting to schedule a ride to see a judge or have a hearing. So building a jail in Luther would be based on the mistaken belief that it would bring good, but it would actually drag those trying to climb the financial ladder of success to their downfall and yet another potential ghost town in the decade to come. So we need to create a new trend where we focus on families and find a new home for those who've made poor decisions. Thank you.
William Arps.
Good morning. I'm the mayor of Luther, and actually I was hoping a few more of my citizens would come up here so that I could merely come up and go ditto, ditto, ditto. The selection of, or this particular jail site in the vicinity of Luther has done something that I consider miraculous. I've never found my diverse population all agree unanimously on anything, but on this subject, they do unanimously agree for a number of reasons, some of which have already been stated and several more which are about to be stated, that this is something that the town opposes completely, entirely, unanimously. I could go ahead and start stating some reasons, but I plan not to go over my time, and I know that Commissioner Davidson has already brought these considerations to the board, and they'll be discussed again in executive session. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Elizabeth Wilson.
Good morning. My name is Elizabeth Wilson. I understand there isn't a perfect spot for a new jail. However, locations that are close to schools should not be considered. Of all the boxes that have to be checked, some of them are larger than others, and proximity to a school has to be one of the largest boxes, if not the largest box. The proposed site for a new jail in Luther is 6 miles away from my son's school, but even more disturbingly, only 3 miles away from Luther Elementary, Middle School, and High School. Jails and prisons unfortunately house people accused of drug dealing, child molestation, rape, murder, child sex trafficking, and many other shocking crimes. Children at the public schools walk to school and wait at bus stops. It is concerning that inmates with no transportation leave county jails on foot when released. That could put those who've just been released in the path of children. There are also environmental concerns that cause harm. Some jails fail to properly manage the disposal of hazardous waste or use toxic chemicals as disinfectants, leading to release of harmful pollutants into the environment. If this jail is built in Luther, it would account for almost 2/3 of the town's population, representing a significant burden on the utilities in the area. This results in instances where prisons dump waste into nearby rivers because they failed to perform due diligence and ensure the local infrastructure could handle their needs. This sort of behavior is seen at even lower percentages of a jail, accounting for even 20 and 30% of an area's population, let alone over 60%. Studies show that towns with new prisons experienced much lower increases in employment, retail sales, household wages, housing units, and home values when compared to towns without. While I understand the necessity of correctional facilities in Oklahoma County, myself and many other parents strongly believe this particular location will do more harm than good for the future of our state and the students being served today. Placing a jail in Luther schools would introduce potential risk and disturbances that would negatively impact our students' sense of security and their ability to focus on their education. Jails need to be built in places where community and school safety can be ensured. I am asking you to remove Luther from the list of possible sites for the new jail. I agree with Terry in the new location being near the current site of the current jail. And everybody you see here today in red, and some who are not, are here to oppose the jail site in Luther. Not all of them are able to speak and have not signed up to speak. So if you are here today for opposition to the jail in Luther, please stand up briefly and show your support.
Thank you. Walt Treywick.
Some of the issues related to construction at that site, as was already mentioned, there's a 60-foot elevation difference. The Oklahoma Turnpike Authority chose not to put the turnpike through there due to the high water table. If it's too unstable for a road, it would make sense it's too unstable for any type of facility. The Clean Water Act, Smith Creek runs right through the middle of this property. How will the Clean Water Act affect this as a possible location? Oklahoma City will not use the water from the Garber Wellington due to uranium, arsenic, and heavy metals. There's also concern about how this will affect existing water wells in the area. Waste disposal has already been addressed. And my concern with that is, will spills from that also affect, knowing that the water table is so high there, it's a direct route into the water table. Thank you for your time.
Mike Board. Okay. Haynes Reynolds.
My name is Haynes Reynolds, and I'm speaking on the site in the vicinity of the stockyards. I'm simply saying that today I'm completely unprepared, had no notification, had no idea this was going on, just found out about it. Wanted to come make a point that I was against this location. I've not been notified, and this property cannot be reproduced anywhere else. Thank you.
Mayor Chad Alcox.
Good morning, Mayor Chad Alcox with the City of Choctaw. I wanted to take a few minutes to come up here this morning, not to talk about not wanting the jail because it's too close to a school or daycare, or the effects it would have on the community, but it doesn't financially, logistically, or business-wise make sense for Oklahoma County as a whole to come out to eastern Oklahoma County, whether that's 150th and Luther or 29th Street, just west of the Kickapoo. The amount of time that it takes, not only for employees, but for officers to travel from their home or station to the proposed sites would triple the amount of time that they're currently traveling. A quick example, on Thanksgiving, I had the pleasure of doing a ride along with officers in the city of Choctaw, and we made an arrest. From the time we left Choctaw Jail to getting downtown, it was 21 miles, which is roughly 35 minutes with no traffic. Booking took about an hour or so. We were denied booking for medical clear, sent to St. Anthony's, had to get them medically cleared, go back for another hour or so. We were gone off the streets for about 4 hours and 15 minutes. If you move the jail to eastern Oklahoma County, whether it's Luther or 29th Street location, you're now going to be taking officers off the streets, putting other officers' lives at risk, putting the safety of the citizens at risk to save time here at the beginning phases of the location. Now, I know the individual that put his land up in 29th Street location. He's actually a judge in Choctaw. And I'm disappointed to say I found out 2 days ago that this was even an option. I know the city of Choctaw, the city of Harris, city of Luther, Jones, Eastern Oklahoma County is completely against these two locations. The amount of time alone, the financial costs that would occur in the long run, maybe financially cheaper now because of the land, but long term, with the amount of time taking the officers off the street, with gas, transportation costs, Oklahoma City is the #1 city that books detainees in the county jail. From what I understand, 25 to 30 a day. You're now taking 25 to 30 officers off the streets for anywhere between, we'll say, 3 hours at a low bet or more, each and every day for a location that just makes zero sense. Going forward, I think what makes the most sense for the county and all the cities involved, we're not going to have a common consensus of everybody being happy. That's just not going to happen. You all are in a very tough position. But what makes sense is a centralized location within Oklahoma County that cuts down the amount of time and resources as part of the booking process. So one of the 3 centralized locations within the Oklahoma City metro area is what would make the most sense going forward. Thank you.
Sandra Tranwick, am I saying that right? Sorry.
My name is Sandra Treywick.
Sorry.
It's okay. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you all today. According to Oklahoma law, the seller of a property is not required to disclose that the property has been used as a biosolid site. The acreage offered at Peebly Road and Northeast 150th is one of Oklahoma City's Class B biosolids land application sites. This site is located in a valley across the road from other active biosolid sites and is surrounded by multiple sites within a mile of the property. Research shows exposure to Class B biosolids is linked to a wide range of health problems for those living nearby. Including in the packet I will give you is research showing cases of asthma, birth defects, respiratory failure, emphysema, vomiting, and a study of 54 people living in close proximity where 25% were infected with Staphylococcus aureus and 2 died. The purchase of this property for the new jail would increase costs of healthcare, transportation to hospitals and clinics, and potential for escapes in transport, missed work days of employees, increased liability, and potentially push our county jail even further up on the list of most deadly jails in America. The 8th Amendment of the Constitution prohibits indifference to conditions that pose unreasonable risks of harm to prisoners' health. These violations include 1. Exposure to toxic or noxious fumes. Class B biosolids qualifies as toxic and noxious. 2. Insects. Research shows explosions of thousands of flies after application of biosolids for months. 3. Clean drinking water. DEQ reports that I will hand you report uranium and arsenic in the water that makes it undrinkable. I'm running out of time, so I'll let you all test the water for PFAs, also known as forever chemicals, which are also found in biosolids. I understand that the objective of the new jail is to reduce deaths and solve the infrastructure problems at the current facility. If the jail were to be relocated to this site, the county may be jumping from the frying pan into the fire. In light of all the facts presented by concerned citizens today, I would like to formally request that this site be withdrawn as a potential jail site for the good of the prisoners, the employees, and the taxpayers who would inevitably bear the burden of this choice and its repercussions. I would like to propose the logical choice, which would be to build a new jail at the current location. Are there any questions?
Thank you.
Thank
Greg
you.
Henry.
Good morning. I'm here to protest the location of the stockyards. I've had land in that area for over 20 years. Had a business in the area about 35 years. And for a business to locate in the stockyards, there's obvious benefits. Obviously not being in the Oklahoma City limits. There are a lot of site problems. There's groundwater issues. There's the area floods every time it rains. And you've got the sale barn that happens every week. I can't imagine the jail being located right next to it. But I don't know why they wouldn't just go on the other side of May Avenue, and which all that land, there's dilapidated houses, there's vacant land from the river to 15th. And it seems like an easy location. I don't mind being next to the jail. I just don't want to lose the land that I've, planned on making my life work out of. And it seems like as far as location, it's an obvious location, but there's a lot of issues with that. And also, the stockyards has been a huge deal to Oklahoma City for 100 years. And if you locate the jail there, I could see lots of call for the disassembly of the stockyards itself, because there's a lot of issues there. So again, I just don't know why you just don't go on the other side of May Avenue. There's a lot of land available. And it seems like an obvious choice if you're going to be in that area. But anyway, that's my situation. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not sure. Voral? Okay.
Can't read my writing.
Is it Kevin?
Stephen.
Stephen. Okay, I'm sorry.
All right. I didn't bring a bunch of notes, so I'll try to make this quick. Person I've lived in Luther my whole life, 66 years. We've already seen the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority come through our property without even giving us a chance to talk about it. Split property that's been in our family for over 100 years. So we take that property out in that area very personal. So any of this, I say don't have it there. That's my first thing. The other thing, this property is not no infrastructure is set up there at all. There's no sewer. There's no public water in the area for miles and miles. Like I say, it's 25 miles to the courthouse. I think Oklahoma County encompasses 718 square miles, and this proposal is 4 miles from the county up in the corner. That makes no sense at all either. But like I say, and they talked about the topography of the property. It's all on a huge slope that goes right down into the railroad. That's been said before. But like I say, it's just so far that the streets out there are not set up. The stormwater runoff from this size facility in the parking lot and the whole area runs into the creek in the area. That's the only place to put it, which is not good. So I just totally oppose this property. Makes no sense at all for the money wise as well, and the prisoners wise. So I just oppose it. Thank you.
Thank you. We have both Charles and Vicky DeFurier, so whichever you want to go first.
Charles DeFuria. I live at Coffee Creek and Triple X in Luther. And I just want to ditto everything that we've heard about the reasons why it should not be built in Luther. I don't want to take too much time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your service on the Planning Commission. Emily Mason. Apologize for the phone tag.
Oh, yeah, no.
We've been trading calls.
Good morning. My name's Emily Mason. I live right next to the proposal.
There you go.
Good morning. My name's Emily Mason. I live right next to the proposed location on our family land that's been in our family for over 100 years. But today I want to talk to you about time and distance and how it matters for the health of those that are incarcerated. So according to the Journal of Emergency Medicine, every 6.2 miles increases the mortality rate by 1%. Another study says that for every 5 miles, it increases the mortality rate by 1.25%. So currently, the Oklahoma County Jail is 1 mile from St. Anthony's and 2.2 miles from OU Health. If the jail is moved to Luther or outside of the city, we could potentially be increasing the mortality rates by 4 to 6%. Those studies were done over, the study was done over 5 years and had over 10,000 data entries. And it was also done of the general population. Unfortunately, those that are incarcerated have significantly more mental health and comorbidities. So my concern, obviously all the reasons that people say, but my concern is, are we going to be able to provide good health care to those that are incarcerated? Are we going to have more deaths because of simply more travel time to get to emergency health care? So the other thing that concerns me is when I think about in 2021, when the gentleman that worked for the Oklahoma County Jail was held hostage. That was a terrifying and scary situation. Luckily, they were right next door to the Oklahoma City Police Department. If it's moved out to Luther, our resources are so currently, I know you guys all know this, but I just have to get it to you. All of our teams are police department and Warrenton Fire Department. I have no idea what it is, but I'm going to tell you that I have never seen this out there. So, are they going to have to drive from Oklahoma City all the way out to Luther? And I think that so Luther are significantly at risk for lack of resources, and also I'm very concerned about people saying and will ultimately. Thank you guys so much for listening.
Thank you. Roy May.
Good morning. I'm Roy May. I'm actually a resident of Logan County, but I do own WH May Livestock Commission Company in the stockyards. It just happens to be I'm the 4th generation owner. It's our hub of what we do throughout the state of Oklahoma and other states. It was founded in 1910 by my great grandfather, W.H. Bill May, which you'll kind of get the correlation between May Commission Company and May Avenue. I'm here to oppose the proposal of I'm going to call it the Southwest 15th and May Avenue, because I realize that they're trying to say it doesn't include the stockyards, but it would be including purchase property approximately 20 acres from the stockyards company. But one or more of the commissioners have touched on due diligence earlier, and I think we're having to backtrack and hurry up and work all this due diligence in on these other new proposed properties when we didn't maybe do we did not do a full due diligence on these properties. Most of the people, if not all of the people, were not notified that they were even being considered. I also own 2 other businesses that I've invested in property in the Stockyard City area, which that is Stockyard City Main Street, which is a whole nother issue. But on the due diligence, somebody mentioned in the Luther area, but we have a railroad that's along 15th that goes probably half a mile all through that area that you're talking about, and they're hard to deal with. We have water well, the water tower you can see from I-40, a huge water storage tank. It's in a more or less, I believe, a floodplain. There's a lot of old underground things from Wilson Packing, and a lot of complications there. But what it gets down to is you guys are working yourselves hard, but time is of the essence. And I just don't think you have the time you'd have to condemn or do eminent domain with 7 or 8 properties. It's a boot-shaped property. I don't understand the selection of that at all. Just pretty complicated. That whole area can't hardly take the water that it's taken. Oklahoma City could not take 70 more acres of water
runoff, out alone to know the 3,000 people with employees and prisoners on that, or detainees or whatever you call them. I mean, people incarcerated. Buying that would eliminate our water tower. Or it's on that property on the 20 acres. There's really not any, in my opinion, it'd be to the county's advantage, specifically county commissioners, because you're the ones that are mainly working with it, just to eliminate this off of the agenda, take it off. It can't be done. The time is of the essence. It just can't be done. There'd be litigation. People won't want to sell. It'd be eminent domain. I know you're working hard, but it's not the place. And just speaking of the stockyards and the cattle industry, it's over $1 billion being handled there every year for 113. Well, equationally, but 113 years, $1 billion. There's probably not another 70 acres in Oklahoma City that does $1 billion. And I propose to leave it. We could have a show of hands, leave it where it's at, rebuild it. You've already got it. You don't have to ask permission for anybody. You don't have to go to court. You don't have to do anything. Just got to figure out how to make it better than they did to start with there and bigger. Thank you.
Kyle, is it Gandy?
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Kyle Gandy. I am the Economic Development Director for the City of Del City, a fourth-generation resident of Del City and a formal council person for the City of Del City. I'm here in opposition to the jail location being proposed at Grand and Southeast 15th. There are 5 schools, both private and public, located anywhere from a half mile to 1.5 miles from that location. There have been a couple of proposals for different sites for the jail. I would like to read some arguments for why the jail should be rebuilt in its current location. And this argument is made by the mayor of Oklahoma City, Mayor Holt. This is an excerpt from an email that he has written to one of our council peoples. The area immediately surrounding our current county jail is one of the most active development areas in the entire metro. In the last 15 years, hundreds of millions of dollars of private investment have been poured into the area immediately surrounding the jail, seemingly undeterred by its presence. To the immediate east is our metro's premier performance hall, hosting Broadway shows and international stars. New high-end residents have developed around it in the last decade. More residents have recently been announced. Its grounds also host the community's beloved Festival of the Arts. To the immediate west is a highly successful brewery, Stone Cloud, now home to 2 iterations of Holt My Beer. To the immediate south is perhaps the fastest growing district in Oklahoma City, the West Village. The West Village is home to an award-winning 4-star hotel, a critically acclaimed restaurant, and concert facility that routinely hosts national acts, as well as hundreds of luxury apartments with a near 0 vacancy rate. All of this has occurred in the literal shadow of the current county jail. So we have a known, right? The county jail has been in that location since 1991. If we move that location to, say, Southeast 15th and Grand, to basically an island where we have no public infrastructure, we're surrounded by schools, we're surrounded by residents that are on fixed income that don't really have a choice, that moved into that location, don't really have an option to move out of that location. It just seems to me that the current location is probably the most appropriate location, as argued by the mayor of Oklahoma City, as well as reiterated by many of those here today. We are having tonight at our city council meeting a public hearing that you are all invited to attend. That's on behalf of I'm inviting you on behalf of our city manager and city council. So thank you for your time.
Tiffany Solomon.
Good morning, and thank you for your time. I know you guys have heard a lot this morning, but I would like to say the most important concern is security and safety. Apologies, I'm in Luther, just on Peebly, not too far within walking distance from the location proposed. When someone is released and doesn't have transportation, where will they go? That is the biggest concern. The safety of children, families, and myself are most important. I often walk Peebly and 150th and no longer feel safe in doing so, posing a threat to everyone, physically and mentally. Many of us here today own properties with dense wooded areas. We share a common concern about the possibility of someone squatting on our land as well. I propose the current location. It's closer to the Jesus House and resources that are to those that are being released that don't have families or anywhere to go. I also worked directly behind the location for almost 10 years at Young Brothers. And when anything would ever occur, we had the immediate police station across the street, and it did help. And so the current location is what I propose. Thank you.
Jerry Reynolds.
Good morning. I'm Jerry Reynolds. I'm the president of Oklahoma National Stockyards. I think I've spoken to each of you on the phone briefly, so I appreciate the opportunity to see you in person and chat a little bit with you today. I'm here to officially notify the Oklahoma County Commissioners that the Stockyards is not interested in selling any of our property, specifically the property located on May Avenue, adjacent to May Avenue, the 10 to 12 acres that's been referenced this morning. The property is currently being slated for future projects that are critical to our long-term growth and success. Oklahoma National Stockyards has been in business for 113 years, providing an opportunity for cattle producers, cattle buyers to come together to maximize the value of beef produced not only in Oklahoma, but multiple states adjacent, spanning several hundreds of miles. The economic impact of our facility, as Roydon stated, can well exceed over $1 billion annually. This does not include the local area businesses that are impacted by a cattle producer coming to the stockyards to drop off a load of cattle on a Sunday, taking their family to have a steak dinner in one of our local restaurants, or shopping into our local business to buy a pair of jeans or whatever they may need. In addition, to Oklahoma National Stockyards employees, we have 9 commission firms, several of which are represented here today, that sell cattle through our facility. This combination provides jobs for well over 100 families locally, as well as the state across the state of Oklahoma and even Texas. The stockyards are an important business for our local, state, and regional economy. Any action taken by the county to adversely affect our business's short or long-term goals would have a profound negative impact on this historic facility. Our primary goal is to continue business as usual, to continue providing a place for our customers to maximize the value of their cattle over the next 100 years. Respectfully, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Former Mayor Jenny White.
Good morning, Commissioners. It's so nice to see you again, and thank you so much for letting us speak on this topic. We've already heard from our current mayor, Terry Arps, and as the former mayor, I would just like to reiterate everything he said and everything that's been said here, but I'd like to just kind of re-emphasize one thing. I know that you guys know that when I was mayor, Eastern Oklahoma County suffered tremendously from just a lack of infrastructure. I mean, getting ambulance places, getting the sheriff, getting police. We've always had an issue with that. Adding something to our area where we've already had issues previously just doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense, as I've heard a lot of other people say this morning. But I'm going to go off to just mention one quick little thing that I haven't heard anybody say, and it may seem kind of silly, but it's actually a thing. So we do have the Redbud electrical power plant as a very large area. I live on Indian Meridian. It's just a mile over on XXX. And one of the things that I will say, I mean, all of us are certainly grateful that, you know, when we need it, that power is there. However, I will tell you, for those that don't live in the area, you could have a certain amount of PTSD just from hearing the sirens go off when things aren't functioning properly on that site. And all I could think about when I heard about the proposed jail site was, oh my goodness. So how much more scary would any of that be? So I just think there are better sites, and I tend to agree with everybody that if we just stay where we are and just redo it better, that, you know, all of the missing pieces are there. So thank you again for your time, and we really appreciate it.
Tammy Murphy? No, Tammy Murphy. Oh, there.
Good morning. My name is Tammy Murphy, and I operate a business in the stockyards. And would like just to reiterate that the property that you are looking at in the stockyards is owned by 5 different individual owners. So county doesn't own it, city doesn't own it. We have a horrible problem down there with homeless, which Commissioner Mon, you're aware of because we've talked to you before about that. To exacerbate that by releasing more people out into that area makes it hard to do business. It is an area that extensive amounts of money have been spent on to encourage people to come visit from outside the state and around the state. It is an accepted tourist attraction. We would like to have help solving our homeless issue to start with before we attract any more bad attention. The infrastructure issues that have already been brought up are a real concern. And to build a new property that puts that much more people in accessing the infrastructure, that would have to be addressed. I would just like to add my comments to keeping the jail where it is. It's an accepted institution. The location works. If you all would consider rebuilding on that location, it would make an awful lot of people in this room really happy. Thank you so much for your time.
Is it M.E. Nelson? Did I get that right?
Yeah, you did good.
Okay.
Hey, it's an honor to be in front of you guys, and I know you've got a really hard job because you're trying to put something somewhere that nobody wants, and that's tough. But what I see is I have compassion for the people that's going to be in the jail. Those people are going to get let out. Some of them is penniless. They're 6 miles from the nearest convenience store. You know, they're 12 miles from the nearest liquor store. You know, and what are y'all going to do? Just pack them a lunch and give them a bottle of water and say, have a good day. You know, there's no busing. And I watched that movie, you know, the show, The Jail, and most of it, 90% of it, just alcohol and drugs. So these guys are really low crime as far as the people they let out. But if they don't have somebody to come pick them up, man, they're in trouble. You know, I don't know about you guys, but in the winter, I don't want to walk 6 miles. You know, and when I get there, what's going to be there? There's no infrastructure, you know, out there. So an activated sludge plant to take care of the waste is going to cost $6 to $10 million. You know, and it looks like to me you guys could either put the same place that you are now, or just buy maybe a block, you know, and just public, you know, intimate domain, as far as just pretty close to what you got the jail now. You see abandoned buildings and abandoned houses in that area. Probably 65,000 would catch most of the house values in that area. You give somebody 3 times their house, then they could go relocate to somewhere nicer than what they are. Most people in that area are just caught in a trap because they don't have the money and they can't have the afford to go to live anywhere else. The turnpike went through, you know, and split up a bunch. I know Mike World, he split his family farm up, you know, and it was just like, you know, take it or leave it out there when they did it. Yeah, they had public meetings, but didn't mean nothing. You know, that nothing was made, you know, was changed. I live a half a mile from the site. What's going to happen to my around my property's worth about $750,000. What's going to be the value of it once the jail goes in? Is it going to be less? Who's going to pay me for the difference of my property value? Okay, where are you going to get your water from? Water wells? Yes, we are very blessed with a nice aquifer that goes through this part of Oklahoma. What is going to be $1 million a day or 1 million gallons a day taken out of the aquifer going to affect the water wells in that community? It's just something to kind of kick around. And I know you got a hard job, but I think where the jail is a good location. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Tommy Turner.
Morning. I just want to tell a little story kind of about myself and why I live out in Luther. In the early 80s, I graduated in Luther, and of course, a lot of people that graduate, first thing they want to do is get out, and I did. I couldn't leave fast enough. So through some of the decisions I've made through my life is due to kids and stuff like that. So the first place me and my wife moved in the 80s was War Acres. And of course, we all know how Oklahoma City is built and where it's built, where it's grown and stuff like that. So me and my wife decided, we had 2 kids, we decided to move to Deer Creek. Okay, imagine this. I lived in Deer Creek before Deer Creek was there. I lived next to the high school. You couldn't buy no property there anymore. Zero. I mean, that's how lucky it was. Now look at Deer Creek. You can't even get a place there anymore. Deer Creek's grown. Piedmont's grown. I moved to Stillwater, got transferred there for 6 years. That's before they even had hotels. So it's growing. So I moved back to Deer Creek. My children have grown and they graduated out of Deer Creek, and I'm fortunate now to have grandkids. So my children moves out, and I start thinking, me and my wife, where all the places we would like to go to where we were comfortable, and that would be Luther. We moved back out to Luther, Oklahoma, because it was a small community, get away from the city. We've done all that. It's safe. I never got in trouble. I didn't have a lot of guidance growing up, but Luther was a good town, good sports, good FFA, good friends. Never got in any trouble. So I looked at my wife, and she's a city girl from McGinnis High School, and convinced her to move to Luther, Oklahoma. Since then, we've moved out there in 2019. Everything's going good. What they have to say about Luther, I've researched it before I went. Everybody's growing except Luther, but you can see the movement going out that way. Look at Arcadia. It's going. Now it's going toward Luther. The land value's going up. The school's going up. There was a nice high school. I started looking at this. Then all of a sudden things are going good. And God, I knew the Vorals were well. And then all of a sudden I listened. Then that turnpike just hit them. I'm like, good God, a torpedo. It was awful. So everything seemed to kind of go past that and go forward. So we elected to move to Luther. Now I have convinced my daughters, because I like it so much, to now enlist all my grandkids in Luther. That's how proud I am of it. Not Edmond, not Deer Creek, but come out there. The reason I guess I'm here today because my daughter looks at me over the weekend and says, if this happens, I'm moving the grandkids out. We're moving. That bothered me. And that's why I'm here today. If this happens, you're going to hurt Luther. It's the first time in a long time this city has a chance to grow. I've seen people come in and rebuild the lumber yard. I've seen people come in and put restaurants in there. So things are going good. Good news, Route 66. Finally, they're going to redo that crazy road. They're fixing it. Great things are happening. This could hurt us. So that's all I have to say. I'm against it. Okay.
I'm going to try one more time. Is Mike Board back? Okay, there you are.
I've received a 1 minute penalty.
You're
For
good.
walking outside. I'm an old guy other than Mike. I'm probably the oldest guy here that's been a lifetime resident of Luther. We love Luther. Most of these people you've heard from love Luther. They moved there for the reason to live in a rural area. I served on the planning commission. I've served on the school board, and a lot of good people out there. What we've got here that's caused a big stir that I see is we have a person bought a piece of property about 2 years ago, tried to sell it, wasn't able to sell it. So this comes up. So he's like, oh, I'll offer it to you guys. That has no reason that it would be a perfect jail site. There's no reason on earth. It's going to hurt a lot of people that live in the area. It does no good to Luther. And all it, and the, as far as the construction part goes, it's a terrible construction site. There's a creek there that all this runoff would go into. There's a farm field that it would go into. There's it's a terrible build site. Have any of you been out to that area? Have you? You think it's a good build site?
Well,
Can,
we, after hearing this, or?
okay. I didn't get a yes, so that's a good sign. Anyway, it affects a lot of people that have maybe moved to the area because property values were a little less, but they're taking good care of their properties. It's a growing area. I I just ask that you mark this spot off, and I think the old jail has be as many problems as it's had. It's the best place to keep the jail. It's handy to every place else, and it's served its purpose in other ways other than that. The location is a good location. So I just ask that you please remove the 150th site from your list. Thank you.
Thank you. I see Councilman Pendergraph. Do you care to speak? Okay. Any other citizens who didn't maybe sign up but still want to speak? Okay. Seeing none. I just want to say thank you to everybody for taking your time and spending the first business day of the year. I know probably a lot of things are on fire with your businesses and your life, and you took time out to come down here. And I, for one, don't take it lightly, and I'm sure I speak for all of us. I could maybe address just a few things. If you, somebody mentioned the distance of 5 miles. If you look at any site that's been proposed since the very beginning of this and take in 5 miles, they're almost all going to include at least a school, if not multiple schools. So I just wanted to explain my position. I have never diabolically said I'm opposed or emphatically said it has to be on any of the sites. But what I will say is I've never considered the schools as being the kill switch. Someone said, well, it's a bigger box than the other. It's because the schools are around all of them. No matter where we're going to wind up going, it's likely going to be near. The question is, what is near? If you're a parent of a student that goes to school there, you think it's near enough. And that's the problem. It will be a disqualifier. Those are only just listing the public schools. We also have charter schools, private schools, home schools. One of the sites the other day, I had a parent contact me and said 3 out of the 5 houses on our block are homeschooled. And I want to be treated just the same as if we're a public school. Well, I didn't even have any idea that there was such a large homeschool community. We'll probably find out about that when we choose an area, and everybody's going to go, what were you thinking? Well, we're just doing with the best we have with the knowledge that we have in front of us. I hear you about the infrastructure, and that's a consideration with the factor of no matter how far off we go, it's going to be a tie-in question of how far back it takes to tie into adequate sewer and stuff, and that offsets some of the land is cheaper, but then it's going to have a higher cost depending on how far we have to deploy. And others have had environmental concerns. Others don't really offer enough land for what we've hoped for. I'm talking about all the ones we've had proposed from the beginning, and reasons why some have failed to continue carry on, and the reasons some are there. Mayor Holt and I spoke on Friday, and he continued to believe that the grand site is one that's the one's frequently referred to as Trosser Park, would be one that Oklahoma City would be willing to zone. That's been another problem. You have the 3 elected county commissioners here, but we also, if we're going to go into a municipality, we have to have their zoning authority. And so then it becomes a question of which one of these are you going to accept, because we wouldn't want to buy land that you couldn't use. You'd be back into the situation that we're in now. The existing site is on, just so everybody knows, is it 8 acres?
It's actually not even listed.
But just for information, it's on a tiny postage stamp piece of property. So the county doesn't own any additional land. There's not even enough parking really for the employees if we're at full employment. It's just a horrible design, and what I am opposed to is going back to another tower. I don't think that maybe everyone fully appreciates, but you hear about all the problems with the jail and a lot of the news stories and stuff. So many of them are tied directly to the fact that we're in a high-rise facility. And it wouldn't matter if you built a brand new one, you go back into elevator issues. It's all kinds of things, from the quality of the food and temperature of it by the time it arrives to the inmate that the health department cares about. I mean, it's just stuff you wouldn't have even ever thought about. And so all across the country, best practices is to try, if land is available, to do a one-level jail. And that's something I'm pretty committed to personally, because I think it will eliminate, it's more staff and energy challenging to do a high rise. Plus, the federal regulations are we have to provide so much natural light. You hear so much about the windows that are in the current facility, and why did they have windows? It's because there's federal guidelines on how much exposure to natural light. That's hard to address in a high-rise tower facility. So when you look at the area that's around, it is correct. Someone said you would have to do eminent domain and go through there if you were going to even find an area, and you're pretty limited, because if you're looking for a horizontal versus a vertical tower, then you are going to need a larger footprint, and that becomes part of the challenges. In saying all that, there's not an answer just directly, but I wanted to give background because I'm having most of these conversations with people individually. I was flooded, I'm sure my colleagues were, over the weekend with emails. I think we've gotten into some sort of an app where people merely have to click a link and they send this to us. So, I mean, I've been bombarded, and I'm doing the best I can to slowly go through and answer those as time allows. And the phone calls and the text messages are just added to that. But if I could just kind of do a catch-all and explain that as an overall, it's sort of the considerations that each of us are waffling back and forth with. Do either of you have anything else you want to say? All right, if there's no other commissioner comments, just Happy New Year.
Yes, Happy New Year. Thank you all so much for coming down here and speaking. We do appreciate it.
3.
Thanks to all the residents of Eastern Oklahoma County, Luther. We hear you. I tend to agree wholeheartedly with that. I don't think it's a good place for it. I grew up out there. I know what it's like out there. I think this would probably be a bad, well, not even probably, it is a bad location for it. As you spoke, I pulled it up on the Google Earth. I wasn't aware of the topography. One of the other concerns that I've got, one of our partners, Oklahoma City, and their biosolid dumping. I'm going to look further into that if this is one of those biosolid dump spots. Stacy, correct me if I'm wrong, but from each point that they dump, it's 5 years before you can even consider building something on that property. Is that right?
There is a time limit. I don't remember off the top of my head what it is.
So if it is the 5 years, even if we purchased it, you know, that doesn't do us any good whatsoever in this time crunch. So thanks for bringing that to our attention.
Is there any new business? If not, is there a motion